Hi, I'm Susie Garden, and this is the Ageless and Awesome podcast. I'm an age-defying naturopath and clinical nutritionist, and I'm here to bust myths around women's health and aging so that you can be ageless and awesome in your 40s, 50s, and beyond. The Ageless and Awesome podcast is dedicated to helping women through perimenopause and menopause with great health, a positive mindset, and outrageous confidence. Hit subscribe or follow now, and let's get started. This week, I have a special guest on the podcast. It's Astrid Ritenis. Astrid is a clinical hypnotherapist, psychotherapist, energy therapist, and life coach, and she has a successful clinic called Energy Healing Melbourne. Over the past 20 years, she's been helping clients overcome pain and trauma and move towards living the life that they deserve. A life that encourages happiness and satisfaction instead of pain and stress. Over her lifetime, she's always held a strong interest in helping people optimize their health and well-being, and has a strong interest in wanting to see people reach their full potential and advance their health, whether physically or mentally. She's also a mother to a 24-year-old son, and in her spare time, she volunteers to assist terminally ill patients, the homeless, and disenfranchised youth and adults. Wow, Astrid, welcome to the show.
Good morning, Susie. Lovely to see you.
Yeah, it's lovely to see you too. I'm really excited for our chat this morning. But we're going to start off. I always ask my guests to tell us about the journey to becoming the therapist that you are today, because this isn't your first career, right?
This is definitely not my first career. Before this, I used to do cooking and catering actually 25 years ago.
Wow.
With organic foods for people that were sick with cancer and diabetes and multiple food allergies.
Yeah.
And that was an amazing career, but, I was working very long hours. And I got into hypnosis and healing and meditation and EFT through my own journey, realising that there was some really big gaps actually in the system, particularly for women and women that were struggling with backgrounds like my own, where you'd been incredibly traumatised and suffered and struggled, and you had no sense of identity and who you were. And what happened was, particularly in those days when I was going through therapies, it's a little bit different now. There was a lot of great talk therapists back then, but I still had the same thinking and the same processes, the same habits, the same patterns, and I was very stuck and very blocked. And what happened was, I've been studying all these things for probably about 30 years, Eastern and Western philosophies, and looking at everything. And basically then I incorporated that into my private practice and into my clinic. And since then I've met thousands of women, and continue to do so daily, young women who were like me, that struggled with self-esteem, self-worth, drug and alcohol addictions, believing in themselves, and feeling really traumatised and stuck by their journey. And a lot of them actually have a lot of menstrual challenges with their periods and PMDD and all sorts of things. And so it's been my absolute interest and goal to be able to help them back to health.
Amazing, Astrid. Yeah, I'm really interested in the kind of therapies that you offer, because as we discussed before we started recording, I come from a background of conventional kind of medicine, and I've only really been in the natural health field for a relatively short amount of time. And the whole thing of energy medicine and mind-body connection was very foreign to me until probably 9 years ago. And so I would love to understand more about your modality. So your modality is the hypnotherapy, there's the energy healing, and there's the EFT. And I wondered if you would mind just giving us a little bit of an explanation of what each of those are, please.
Sure. Definitely. Well, the hypnotherapy can be clinical, but it's very holistic as well. So we incorporate a lot of powerful suggestions. I build up a profile of each client that's coming in. And by that, I mean, what are their symptoms? What are they struggling with? And then we work out a little plan of how we're going to make things change and how they're going to be able to change their thinking and their inner relationship within themselves. How can they love themselves more? And the hypnotherapy is a powerful modality because it is able to facilitate change immediately. You can see results straight away, Susie. So people don't have to wait. 95% of people that literally attend these sessions see differences after the first session in calmness, balance, peacefulness, and self-regulation. And all most people are after, no matter what they're coming in with, is calmness and balance, right? And clarity and feeling good.
Yes.
And hypnosis, we're able to actually reach everything internally from a very deep place. And by doing that, not only are we able to change the thoughts and the habits and the programs, but the physiology, the symptoms of what someone's coming in with start to change because we're working at a deep level. We're working and we're saying, for example, okay, so-and-so, we're releasing this from your body. We're releasing this pain. We're releasing this trauma. We're releasing these addictions. And we're filling them up with positive programs. And their subconscious will absorb exactly how much energy and programs they're ready at a soul and cellular level. And I understand you also came from a medical and traditional background, which is absolutely amazing, into now a totally different background. And these backgrounds really marry and interact very well. And so what we're working with changing the physiology and the DNA and the cellular and the structure, working on changing the thoughts and the habits and the patterns, but also changing the energy. And that's where we then go into the energy healing, because during the course of the treatment, I'm actually doing energy healing on clients. Now, what is energy healing? That's a really
that was my next question.
Yeah, right. What is it? That's a good question, Susie, because a lot of people ask me because they've had no experience with it. Now, energy healing is about hands-on healing, which is very comforting, non-invasive, non-intrusive, and very soothing. And whilst providing hypnotherapy when people are laying on the table or sitting in the chair, we do that. We put the hands on certain parts of the body, and it activates and taps into calmness, and it helps to release energetic, mental, emotional, psychological, and physiological blocks simultaneously. And they just unravel, literally. It's incredibly liberating for the client, and the results are really good. They're profound.
And can this be done remotely? Like, can you do these?
Absolutely.
So you don't actually have to physically touch.
Yes, and I use have a lot of Zoom sessions, and in that case, when we're not physically hands-on, what occurs is that we use a lot of guided visualizations, colours and suggestions, which can be just as powerful to activate through the cells and the organs, the liver and the kidneys, the lungs, and so on and so on. And that's really what we're trying to do, is we're trying to rebuild everything so that people can be healthy internally, mentally and emotionally and psychologically.
Yeah, that's amazing. And tell us also a little bit about EFT, the tapping.
Sure. The EFT is also a very amazing tool and a modality in the sense that it's very fast. So a lot of people, Susie, these days, particularly after COVID in Melbourne, longest lockdown city in the world, are very stressed and very anxious, and the economic times and climates and so forth. So what happens is their nervous system, they're very shaky, actually literally shaking visibly when they're entering the clinic. So we start the session very often with EFT, which is tapping on certain energy meridian points, accessing the amygdala, the nervous system, the kidney energy and all the blockages. And what it does, literally after 2 or 3 rounds, I notice that the people have already stopped shaking.
Yeah.
And they're balanced and they're calm. They're able to take even deep breaths. Now, I use the EFT as a tool prior to the hypnosis and the healing, because what actually occurs is, as people are very uptight and edgy these days, if you like, particularly, I've got a lot of clients that use substances and things like that, and beautiful people trying to get rid of addictions, and their systems are shaky, right?
Yeah.
So we start doing the tapping, and it releases those blockages so that I can actually get them to be accepting and open to the powerful suggestions of hypnosis. Sometimes if we didn't do that tapping first, it might take a lot longer to access the subconscious mind.
Yeah. Wow, that is so interesting. And with these modalities, is there any kind of science or research that backs them up?
Look, there is definitely, with clinical hypnotherapy, there's been a lot of papers and a lot of science that backs up a lot of stuff, and a lot of medical doctors now and psychologists, in fact, and highly skilled medical professionals are using these services even themselves, which didn't happen 20 years ago, I have to say. There's been a real shift and change in this. And yes, there is medical research with clinical hypnotherapy that can lower blood pressure, can lower anxiety, depression, mood disorders, things like that, when treated properly and in the right environment. EFT, not so much clinical research, but there still is research that it can release trauma and anxiety and panic attacks. So a lot of therapists use it for anxiety and panic disorder. And it is very efficient. It's amazing what it can do. And literally instantly. So you've got people coming in from every single demographic, every walk of life, right? So domestic violence ladies that are absolutely shaking, beautiful ladies, people that are shaking for all sorts of different reasons, and it stops it instantly.
Amazing. Yeah, it's really interesting to me. I've tried a number of these modalities personally, and I do feel like there is great benefit in using these kind of more mind-related therapies. There's the things that I do, which is that more nutritional basis, that physiological stuff, and the herbal medicine, and combining that with those more kind of mind-body therapies and energetic therapies is just so incredibly powerful, because we are complex beings. And I think having a kind of a multi-pronged approach is going to give you all of these added benefits to get a result that is going to be long-term and sustainable. So I really love this.
That's right.
Yeah. And you were talking, we were talking before.
It is about long-term.
Yeah, keep going.
Sorry. Yeah. No, it is about long-term and sustainable and longevity. And I always say to people, look, go and see that nutritionist, go and get your gut health sorted out, go and get some things done, whatever form you're using, whether it's Chinese medicine, whether it's a naturopath, whether it's an integrative doctor, a normal, everyday GP that knows about gut health and health. It's really important.
Yeah, it is really important. And we're just still learning so much about these things. And I feel like we are starting, even in the more medical field, to kind of get a little bit more understanding of the energetic kind of fields of the body and how we could potentially use that to bring health to our organism, so to speak.
Absolutely. And to start to believe, I think one of the most important things, Susie, is when we've been sick, and people have been sick for a long time with fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, now long-term COVID, all these sort of things, immune disorders, what happens is we start to believe that we're going to have the same symptoms daily, because we do, and we create that and we manifest that. By using hypnosis, EFT and energy healing, we clear those symptoms and that expectation. We generate some good health. We clear up any emotional patterns and any emotional blocks in the body that are creating poor health, which might be some trauma or pain left over from childhood, right? Or currently or recent stuff. And what we do is, the minute you start clearing through anger, pain, trauma, tears, grief, you know what? That illness disappears. And if you're taking the right nutrients, the right supplements, eating the right diet that's right for you, because everybody's so unique and so different, we notice a total difference and a total recovery.
Yeah, absolutely.
And changing the mindset.
It is. It's so powerful, the mind. And I still don't think many people realize how important getting the mind on board with any kind of treatment plan is imperative. So to have modalities like yours that will help to do that, help to get into that subconscious, because it is such a powerful thing. Our subconscious mind is so powerful, and we just don't have that knowledge of it.
No, we don't. And a lot of people come in and they're really trying to get the right treatment these days, Susie, and they're doing their very best, and they really are going to places and trying to learn about health and listening to podcasts and all sorts of stuff. But at the end of the day, the treatment that you're having won't work if your mindset's not working in the right way, with the right thoughts and self-love and self-worth and so on.
Yes, absolutely. And I just wanted to, this is I think this is still on topic. When we were speaking prior to recording, you mentioned about the inner child, and I was listening to a podcast, an American podcast the other day, and a guy who was a medical doctor and a neuroscientist was being interviewed. And at one point he brought up the inner child, and he actually said, I cannot believe as a medical doctor and a neuroscientist, I'm about to say this, but we definitely need to work on our inner child.
Oh, we do. Absolutely. We definitely do. And
can you describe that for us? Because
of course.
It's a concept that a lot of people are like, oh, what's
that? Yeah. What does it mean? Well, that's good. I'm trying to think of a good way to explain it. So I think when people start to come in and they've probably had a few sessions with me and we've built up a rapport and a safe environment and a trust, I start to ask them and link things maybe to what happened to them as children. So sometimes we might have someone coming in and as a young adult or whatever age they might be, they're reliving this same patterning of what happened to them as children. So the same sort of pain and trauma, unavailable relationships, not connecting to themselves, feeling disconnected for many different reasons. And so what happens is when they're having the hypnosis, we start to access and talk to that young inner child. And that child might be 7 years old, might be 12. Might even be 18, might be even more recent, right? But what we do is we connect the inner child and that wounded child that was hurt and carrying that pain and trauma or rejection or fear or anxiety or all of those things and more. We connect it and heal it and connect it to the adult of who they are today so that they're working on the same team, not different teams. Because otherwise we're adults, but we're working with some of this wounded inner child stuff that's triggering and activating all the time. And we have these funny responses and triggers. And we think, my God, what's happening? I don't want to be living this life anymore. So we actually work on filling that inner child, whatever age they happen to be, with light and healing and giving them permission to have a new job detail using the pathways of using hypnotherapy and energy healing. And that's powerful because then that child can relax and it can be, and you don't have all those triggers going off anymore and all that anxiety. So and it's about breathing and being, and you're feeling very different internally. And sometimes people have many different ages when they were wounded as well, Susie. So there's many different, in one session you might be working with a 7-year-old child, and then we heal that, and then we get to the 10 or 11-year-old, maybe 12-year-old. And so we have to align all those energies so that there's that integration and that balance and freedom. It's about emotional freedom.
Yes, it's amazing. And the thing is, it doesn't have to be like major trauma, does it, Astrid? It's like, I think, people don't really, you think about trauma, you think very serious trauma, but, what kind of things could it be?
Well, it could be even as simple as maybe, your mum might not have spoken to you or one of your parents or carers, about X, Y, and Z, and so you develop a bit of a phobia and you think that everyone's going to be like that. Yeah. Or it might be you might have been one girl was shut outside or actually locked in a little space, right, accidentally, right, in a toilet actually.
Yeah.
Now she's got a fear of being shut, and she's an adult. She's 41 years old. Yeah. So it can be things like that. But to people, that's a really big deal because your inner child is carrying that wound. And so being put into a little space again, even as an adult, and you know that it's not logical, you know that it's not rational, but you're absolutely fearful of it. And so that's what we work on. We take that girl back to that time and clear that so that as an adult now she can go into lifts and go into things because it's actually caused a lot of difficulties in her life. So it's not always the big traumas, but it can be too. Yeah. So because we're asking the inner child under hypnosis, so what went on, and people can remember all sorts of things. It's amazing where they can go, but it's amazing to see afterwards the freedom that they have because they're not playing that role, that same wound over and over again.
Yeah. Love it. It's so fascinating to me. Now, we were chatting before about dealing with being in relationship, I guess, with people who are narcissists. And I think this is a really important conversation to have because I think I mean, I don't know, maybe it's just my experience, but I think almost everyone knows someone that's
Absolutely.
either a narcissist or is in a relationship with one. And you know, it's really kind of an interesting thing. I seem to be hearing about it a lot over the last few years. And I wanted to talk to you about that and you know, see your thoughts about that. And are you seeing an increase in people in these types of relationships, or recognizing it's that type of relationship?
Yes, I'm seeing a definite increase, Susie. And not just an increase of people being in these sort of relationships, but an increase of women and men that have been brought up by narcissistic parents.
Wow.
Where their most basic needs and foundations haven't been met. And what happens then, Susie, is that this makes them perfect candidates to go out with narcissists, because that energy and that vibration is very familiar to them, to attract unavailable people. And so what's happening now is that there's so many people coming in daily that have been affected. Now, some of the symptoms are absolute shakiness, because they've just been gaslighted so many times and told so many lies that their energetic system and their mind and their psychology and thinking is totally confused. So their nervous systems are absolutely overloaded. They're shaky. They can't relax. They can't sleep. They can't think. Their cognitive processes, in fact, in the brain are shutting down, because they've been dealing with being, you know, ridiculed, any of their thoughts or feelings or beliefs, or if they mention anything that could be not working out in that relationship or friendship or family relationship or personal relationship, they're ridiculed. So they're actually feeling very disempowered, very sad, very confused, angry, grief-stricken, and realising that sometimes their partners or husbands are doing multiple dating apps and dating.
Oh my gosh.
Like multiple dating apps, and that's a really big one that I've been encountering recently.
Wow.
And the damage, the carnage that leaves behind in a woman's soul, the grief and the pain and the trauma is very deep. And also it's happening to more and more men. More and more men are actually coming in, which is wonderful to see as well. And more aware. But there's certainly been an increase in relationships, but also in people coming in and stating, hey, look, I've grown up with a narcissistic brother. This has affected my life, or my mother and parents were like that. What can I do? I've got soul trauma. I've got core wounds, and they're using, because there's some great podcasts around, people can educate themselves.
Yes.
But the thing still is how do you get rid of that energy?
Yes.
So, because if we don't get rid of the energy, we've got the same thinking, right? We've got the same habits, the same patterns, and we attract the same kind of people that treat us in the same manner and in the same way. But by changing ourselves at a deep psychological level, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, if that's relevant, and physically, then we have that freedom. And that's what hypnotherapy, EFT, and healing can offer, with the right diet and the right habits at home, such as meditation, yoga, Pilates, sitting under a tree, whatever it is.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah. So I guess one of those messages is that there's so many things that you can do to help get through that, and to recognize that, and to I guess leave if you want to leave.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of women that haven't quite left yet when they come and start seeing me. So there's many different circumstances, and in that case, you start to build the women up and their confidence and their self-esteem, so that then they can get the strength internally to leave at the right time for them. And I always say it's got to be at the right time for them, when they're feeling that they can do that. And it does.
Sorry, keep going.
No, it does happen all the time. I see them third, fourth treatment and they've left. It's amazing.
Wow. And is there anything, like if you're in relationship with a narcissist, will they change? Is it possible to stay there and for them to change?
An interesting question. Look, I believe that if people are aware about their habits and their programs and their patterns, funnily enough, in recent times, I've actually had narcissists ringing me up and saying, hey, my wife says I'm a narcissist. I need to make some changes. And I think that's pretty cool. I think it's amazing.
Yeah.
people are becoming more aware. And I believe that some people, if they are open to inner reflection, healing and clearing and being self-aware, then I think absolutely they could heal. Is it going to be easy? Probably at times it could be challenging, but if there is a will, there probably is a way.
Yeah. Wow. Well, that's good to know. And I understand, because you're seeing, such an increase in people that are in relationship with narcissists, I guess, that you've put together a program to try and help a larger number of people with
Absolutely.
this.
Yes.
Can you tell us about that?
Well, what's happening now is, Susie, is that there's so many people coming in that I can't keep up with the intake. Yeah. So we're putting together a great program that people can access anywhere around the world and in their home and in the privacy of their home. And what that's going to be able to do is they can work through that program, that 12-step program, nothing to do with any other 12-step programs. Just have to be a 12-step program. Not that there's anything wrong with 12-step programs. They're great. And what it's about taking each integral step and being able to make some changes at a deep level. And it's going to have hypnosis in each module, EFT and healing. And you can work through that individually. So you might stay on one module for 5 weeks if you wanted to, if you're working on a really deep issue, until you felt that cleared, and then you go on to the next one. And then you can revisit and you can mix it up and sort of splice it up after you've done the complete program. And it's just helping people be empowered, and that they can access this stuff at home. Yeah. And that they are responsible and can be empowered through using hypnotherapy and energy healing and EFT. They're in charge of their own health and their own recovery, because that's what it's about.
Yeah.
Making different choices, choosing different lives, and believing in themselves and loving themselves, and not holding those patterns anymore of attracting the same kind of wolves in different clothing. Because at the end of the day, if we don't clear those patterns, we're attracting the same kind of people and situations, but just maybe dressed up a little bit differently and presented a little bit differently.
Yeah. Amazing. And so that course, is that fully online? It's not a group program. It's something that people can just work through at their own pace.
We will be doing group programs as well, to do with that course as well.
Fantastic. Yeah.
We haven't cemented all that in yet. That's still in gestation, and we're still working and developing and improving it daily.
Fantastic.
But there will be places where women and men will be able to connect in a group setting, whether it be on Zoom or in a clinic setting somewhere. And we can do some group stuff as well for that added support.
Amazing. And so where can people find out more about this? I'm assuming this podcast will be broadcast, I'm assuming, once it's live.
Yes, definitely. Well, I think the best thing is to go to energyhealingmelbourne.com.au, and I have a beautiful PA called Rose, who is very happy to answer everybody's questions. And if you need to talk to me as well, you can set up an individual booking time, and we can see how we can meet your goals and help you to get some recovery in your health and well-being.
Amazing. Astrid, this has been so interesting. Like, there's a lot of these concepts, I think, for many people are still quite foreign. I know, for me personally, and I'm sure a lot of people in, their 40s and 50s and above are the same. You think of hypnotherapy, or you think of hypnotism, and you think of people acting like chickens on a stage and things like that. And, oh, God, I'm sure you do hear that every day.
I have a good joke for that one.
Oh, yes.
I'm not turning you into a chicken today. Yeah. I'm using ducks, and it just silences people, because you have to be very quick, because I get these continuous jokes, particularly from lovely men trying to have a bit of banter and fun.
Oh, yes. Yes, absolutely. So I think it's really good to try and bring this into the mainstream and have people understand that it's not, the therapist is not, going to have control over you and having you acting like something that you're not. It's really just about accessing those deeper layers and allowing, to speak to the subconscious and to help heal through those sort of pathways, really, isn't it? It's very simple in a way.
That's right. And it's being able to heal through those pathways and being able to access and clear off pain and trauma and anxiety and anxious repetitive thoughts and anger and stress, and learning to really live with who you are.
Yeah, amazing. I love it so much, Astrid. Thank you so much for your time this morning. I have really enjoyed our discussion, and I love that you're providing this resource for people to access that maybe don't have access to therapists where they are, or they're not feeling so comfortable to go and actually sit in an office, a clinic, and do this sort of stuff. So I think it's fantastic that you can offer this online, so anywhere in the world people can access it. So thank you again for your time. I can't wait to release this podcast so that women, men can access this information. So thank you.
Oh, thanks so much, Susie. It was lovely having a chat with you today, and thanks for all the good work that you do.
Oh, thank you very much. Thanks so much for joining me today on the Ageless and Awesome podcast. If you liked today's episode, please make sure you click the little plus button if you're on Apple Podcasts, or the follow button if you're on Spotify, so that you can get each new episode delivered to you every single week. If you like free stuff, and who doesn't, then head over to susiegarden.com and grab my 8 essential age-defying secrets every woman over 40 should know right now. Or if you'd like to continue the discussion, head over to Instagram and DM me at Susie Garden Wellness. I'd love to connect with you.